Use a 19mm socket, remove the wheel, take the lug nuts off. Take the wheel off. Use an 18mm socket, take this nut off. I'm going to take a hammer and just push the stud right up. If you have a puller, you could use a puller to push this through, but a hammer will work well. If you hit it right. There we go. Just slide that out. I'm going to remove the tie rod. As I remove it, I want to count how many turns I have. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 23. All right. So the reason why you want to count the threads when you take the tie rod end off is when you go to have the alignment, it's going to be closer, so it'll be a little bit more accurate when you go to have it aligned. I'm going to take some locking pliers and just attach them right here. Take a 22mm socket or a 7/8 and take this nut off. You may have an underbody shield right here that needs to be removed. You'll have some push pins on the side and maybe some on the front, some retainers. If that's in your way, take that off. Our vehicle doesn't have it. We need to take this shield off right here. There's 2 bolts right there. I'm going to use a 10mm socket. Take those out. And also right here. Now this shield is loose up front. You can bend this out of the way a little bit, like that, or you can try to take it off. There's push pins on the back side. It's just kind of hard to access those. I'm going to use some hose clamp pliers, and I want to take this clamp off right here. And just slide that off. There's a clip right here that is attached to the inside boot of the steering rack, right there. So we're going to need to have a screwdriver, a straight blade screwdriver, and try to loosen up that clip right there. There we go. And I'll just grab the boot and just slide that off. If you struggle right here, just grab a pick. There we go. And slide the boot off. There's a little bump stop right here, or a stopper. I'm just going to use a straight blade screwdriver. Just spread this apart and just move this down here temporarily. Right, to remove the inner tie rod, I'm going to need a tool. This is a special tool that has an adapter. There's different sizes. This one is a 33.6mm adapter. So you slide that on first. And then slide this tube down here. It's going to lock in position. Then I can loosen this up. Oh, it's on there pretty good. And break that free. Once it's broken free, it comes off pretty easily. And it'll slide right out. Just like that. And there it is. Right, before I install this inner tie rod, I'm just going to take some grease with a brush and just put some grease in here. That'll be good. On the threads, I'm going to use a little medium duty thread locker. If you have this stopper off of here, you can actually install that on here. I'm going to leave that on our steering rack though. It'll be a little bit easier to install. And start threading it into the steering rack. Then I'm going to take my tool, and you might need a different size for this. Slide that on there. Then I'm going to torque this down to 58 foot-pounds. That's good. Sure. Remove the tool. I'm going to take that spacer or stopper and push it back right up against the inner tie rod end. And I'll take this nut off temporarily so that we can slide the boot on. Set that aside. Take the boot. Now I'm going to reuse my clamp because I got it to straighten out what you're going to need to do, if you can replace the clamp, but you're going to need some special pliers when you go to clamp this. You tighten this down and it's going to push it together and push it in. Or you can always use a wire tie if you have to. And just slide it down in position. And there we go, that's on. So I have the clamp set up right there, so it's easy to get to with the tool. Put the tool on and just clamp it down. And just make sure it's nice and tight. Looks good. We're gonna take and move this shield back in position and put the bolts in. And tighten those down. Now I'll take this clamp, reinstall this. Just make sure that seat's good. And take the jam nut, get the jam nut back on. I can take the tie rod, and I counted 23 turns when I removed this, so count the same turns going back on. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 21, 22, 23. All right, so I can take the castle nut off the end of the tie rod end, and take the end of the tie rod and slide it into the knuckle. Just like that. Take the castle nut, get that started. Now I'm going to use a 18mm socket, tighten this down. If the stud starts to spin, I'm going to take some large pliers. Just try to squeeze the tie rod down. Hopefully prevent the stud from spinning. Now I'm going to tighten this down to 63 foot-pounds. That's good. Make sure the cotter pin hole lines up. You take the new cotter pin, slide that through. If it doesn't line up, you can tighten it a little bit more. And I'll take some side cutters, fold down the cotter pin, just trim the excess. I'm going to take a 21mm wrench, tighten up this jam nut. You're going to want to torque that to 55 foot-pounds when you have the alignment done. And that's good. And install the wheel. I'm going to torque these lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds, and I'm going to do it in a star pattern so that it tightens the wheel down evenly. And I'll just go around again and just double check.